actual thing you're supposed to do as a country. Because the first thing we should consider is census, because you cannot create even state or local government when you don't consider the census, when you don't know the number of people in geographical location, because it should be created according to people, because it's about resource allocation. But by and large, for me, if you ask me, should we create a state? I would prefer us creating states that also make things much more faster. Now let's talk about the governance. You will agree with me that state creation will bring governments closer to people, because people will now have states they can actually relate to directly, and states can actually also plan, as governance will be close to them. Then the next one is economic reasons. Our major problem is resource allocation. And resource allocation will help if we actually know the size of people we're actually dealing with. Now, to create a local government, do we need 100,000 people in a community to have a local government? How many people do we need to actually create a state for? So these are the things. So if it will help resource allocation and judicious use of resources, I think this will help. And the third one, which is our problem, is political reasons. And that's a major problem. So under the political reasons, I will now move into ethnicity. So some people believe that their own area are maybe a just speaking area, maybe Yoruba speaking area of Kogi State, they want to have their state. It should not be the reasons, because there's no way. A place like Edo State now, there's no way you can say each tribe ethnicity should have their own state. No. So we should position ourselves on a better management of ourselves in terms of resource allocation, bringing governance close to people. So I think that could be a reason, because there's a lopsidedness, and I can tell you there's serious lopsidedness in Nigeria. A place like Oyo State, which has about the land size of Oyo State and the entire five states in the eastern region, the difference is just 100 maybe a kilometer. So you could see the difference. So a place like Oyo may deserve, while a place like Bayelsa, we're also thinking they should get people, get another state from them. So these are the things we are looking at. So we need to be objective, and my own objectivity to come from what's the population in an environment to determine local government or a state.
Okay. Now, I have a question for you. Since you are more of the, instead of doing regional development agencies, let's do state creation. Do you think that state creation will drive real economic decentralization in Nigeria, seeing as the current states we have still have their income, most of their income, to run their own states from the federal government?
Right, and that's why I talked about resource allocation. So if we have states, there must also be devolution of power, because that's the major thing now. And what I mean devolution of power in terms of resources, it is abnormal for a federation to say federal government own every natural resource in every state. No, federal government should say they have stake in every natural resource in every state, whereby each state will maximize their natural resources and contribute a particular percentage to the central. By so doing, everything will be functional. And if we now have more states, those states will be much more conscious of generating more revenue within, and federal government will now have more revenue. And if you don't do that, we may have issues. Now states are having issues because everybody rely on federal government allocation, and that's what they are waiting for. So every state of them to go and do more, do internal thinking, do much more internal generated revenue, bring about industry. Everybody is waiting for, to have the cake from the central. I think that's what we need to look at. We must go about the devolution of power and actually allow states to actually function. That's what I think. And I will say it again. I prefer a state creation than regional creation.
Okay. Now, do you think that the creation of new states will encourage competition in governance and innovation?
It's 100% correct to say that if you create more states, and it is by the size of people, I talk about census. If we can have a proper census, know how many people in a particular environment, so that it will be justified that 1.5 million people form a state, 1.03 million people form a state. It won't be that a state will have 90 million, and they will, they will actually have one state, and the state will only have 5 million and will have a state. Is a serious contradiction, and it will even affect resource allocation. So there must be just to it. Though, in terms of resource allocation as it is now, states that have population still get more money compared to the way they do it, compared to states that doesn't have much more. But we must totally devolutionalize our power so that states can actually function well and they can do more.
All right, now let's go to what would we expect, what's the climate we'll expect in case this goes through and they're created, more states are being created. Do we expect a boom or a stagnation economically for these new states and even the current ones we have?
Right. So I think it is still the same thing, depending on the manager of the economy. If you create more states and you don't give state autonomy as it's supposed to be, it will be an issue. But for me, I think it will be more functional if there is more state in some states. I'm not saying, if you look at the argument from the Constitutional Review Committee, some are coming up with different reasons.
All right, we seem to have had a bit of a situation that with the network on the call. Hopefully,
innovation and to bring more development.
Okay.
It's going to bring more development if we can actually embark on a reasons that's much more important compared to political reasons.